Welcome to a new video. Let's take a look at some new malicious compliance stories. The first story is called, "But You Still Have 17 Seconds Left." I'm not exactly proud of this one because I can kind of see where the customer came from. But I think those of you who have dealt with condescending customers before can appreciate it for what it was. So, I supervised a mum and pop restaurant for several years that dealt specifically with shrimp and fish. Outside of cleaning and preparing the stuff, the main deal was cooking it in several big old fryers. It's involved work, but it's not hard work. Just stick the basket of food in the fryer and set a timer for 3 minutes. And when it comes out, just bag it up and give it to the customer. Easy work, though it gets a bit complicated on, let's say, a busy day like a Friday, where we'd do anywhere around $1,000 during the 6-hour shift. See, that's a normally busy Friday. When it's Lent season, the business would boom significantly, like we'd do up to $7,000 during the Friday shifts. So, busy. When it's that busy, you can't exactly rely on timers as much, because there's so much food going in and out of the fryers, the temperature fluctuates, so you got to eyeball it. I'll have food burning at 2.5 minutes, or some food taking up to 4 minutes to look right. So, here's where the malicious compliance comes in. During a Lent Friday night dinner rush, we'll get hundreds of people coming into a shop that's probably smaller than a middle-class living room. I'm talking like the waiting area on the other side of the counter was probably 20 feet by 7 feet, so it can get pretty cramped. I have my register person taking orders and making bags, and pushing them along the line while my wait table people can weigh out the food, so I can start cooking them. When the order is done, I'll shove it in a bag and yell either the name or the order, and someone in the crowd will come to grab it and be on their way. It's a very intimate setup. So, I got a counter full of about 20 bags, each bag with a different order, and this one bag gets to me and it said, "Cook shrimp an extra minute," or something like that. Now, like I said, the fryers cook funny when there's that much food going in and out, so using my years of shrimp frying experience, I extrapolate in my head what the food should look like if cooked for that long under normal conditions, and cook it until it looks like that. I pull the food up, and I hear an "ahum" from behind me, and I look, and this lady apparently followed her bag down the line, waited for me to drop the food, and set her own timer. She said with a "gotcha" attitude while looking at her own timer, "You need to cook that for an extra 45 seconds. At this point, her food was already looking too done, but she interrupted my flow and gave me an attitude, so I blurted out, "Okay," and set a timer for 45 seconds and put it on the counter. I bagged some other people's food, and I hear the lady behind me again, apparently with a little less teeth to her words this time, "I think it's done now," and I grabbed the timer that had I set right in front of her, looked at it, and yelled, with an equally condescending, "Gotcha" attitude, "But you still have 17 seconds left," and smacked it down and waited until timer went off. 17 seconds can feel like a long time in those kinds of situations. Finally, the timer went off. I grabbed her food, it looked burnt. I bagged it up and gave it to her and said, "Here you go, miss. Enjoy the rest of your day." She muttered a thank you and walked off, and my co-workers and customers had a little laugh about it. Never got a complaint. The next story is called, "I Can Only Apply 2 Coupons, Sorry." So, at my job, they offer fundraising cards which have 20 coupons that give free items, and on the card, it says that you can only use one at a time. However, the franchise owner allows us to accept 2 coupons at once based on he's a nice guy. I had just gotten to work, and within 5 minutes, a lady drives up and steps out of a $100,000 Audi. She had ordered over the phone, and my coworker was new, so he told her to bring in her coupons and we would adjust the price. But he told her that she could only use 2 coupons at a time. She comes to the counter and says she's here to pick up for Mandy. I pull her food out of the hotbox oven, and she then hands me 3 fundraiser coupons for a free medium pizza when you purchase a large pizza, a free garlic bread, and a free cinnamon bread. I then explained that we can only take 2 at a time, and if she wanted it, she would have to pay full price, or I could remove it from her order and then trash it. She immediately becomes defensive, blaming it on the 15-year-old coworker that took her order, that he needs to be punished. I then again explain that I can just take the bread off and it would be no problem. She starts examining the coupons, which are very little and tear-offs from the larger fundraiser card, which explains the coupon policy even more conservative than what I was willing to allow. She starts to proclaim that because the individual tabs don't say the coupon policy, that it is ridiculous that I am making this up. I ask her if she has the larger card, and of course, she says no. After seeing that I'm not going to back down, I can't, as the owner can see my price adjustments and will see I took 3. She tells me to void the order, and I oblige with no sarcasm or rudeness. I never take any of these crazy people and their insults personal. I tell her to have a good day, and she then starts yelling that she didn't mean that I should void the whole order. Yes, she did, as she thought I wouldn't throw away her food. She starts insulting me, but by then, I explain that she won't be getting any food from this location. She asks me if I am the manager and that she wants my personal cell phone number to send to corporate. Wanting to be done with the situation and knowing corporate is even more conservative, I write down my name and phone number and tell her to have a good day. She refused to leave but then started calling my phone, which was in my pocket. I have an Apple Watch, so I can see that she is calling as my wrist is vibrating. After about 5 calls, I respectfully remind her that she asked for my phone number and showed her my watch ringing with her cell phone number across the screen. She gives me a sarcastic smile and ignores what I say. Knowing that she's being a dumb person, I just go back to sweeping the front half of the restaurant and she just continues to call my phone, leaving me messages about how rude I am being. I go to the bathroom and she somehow had got my coworker's attention, the 15-year-old, and starts interrogating him about why he would lie to her on the phone and that we are the rudest people she has ever dealt with. I come up to the front and tell him to stop answering her questions and that she needs to leave. She then starts screaming at the top of her lungs that you are lying and dishonest, but then tells me to shut up and that she is talking after continually telling her to leave in a respectful tone. She keeps repeating that I am a liar and that she's going to get me fired. I finally have to tell her that I am going to call the police if she doesn't leave, and she then screams, "Do it," over and over. By this time, about 20 minutes have passed and other customers are asking her to just leave. She then threatens my job again and walks out and drives to the other location that just happens to have the owner working. She obviously lied to him and he calls me to see what happened with her in the background as I can hear her voice. I explain everything and he then turns to her and says, "Actually ma'am, I'm only going to be able to let you use one of those coupons per the fundraiser card and I have one right here to show you the policy." Still on the phone at the time, I hear a loud shriek from her that sounds like someone was being devoured by the swamp monster, followed by the owner telling her to get the heck out of his store. The last story is called, "You Demand Police?" So, this happened at my bachelor's party about 3 years back. I took my guys on a week-long canoe camping trip. My father volunteered to haul all our canoes behind his new Ford. He even got a canoe trailer for the event. Before leaving, we checked the local laws of the destination. The destination had a law that anything towed cannot be 4 foot past the rearmost support without displaying a red marker. Before leaving, my father made absolutely sure that all the canoes were within that 4-foot mark, one coming literally right within 0.25 inches. Then, in an additional show of safety, he tied a nice red bandana on the back of the longest canoe, which happened to have a metal bow and loop which was perfect to tie the flag on. This is the compliance part, not malicious in intent, but will come to be in consequence. The camping trip went well. On the way back, my mum was following behind the Canyonero in her own sedan carrying extra groomsmen from the trip. My parents volunteered to drive them back after their car broke down on the way up. In a day-long drive home, we hit a semi-major city in rush hour. As we are driving on the main route, crossing an intersection, an impatient Jeep driver cuts in between my mum and dad, pulling between the Canyonero with the canoe trailer and my mum's car with no room to spare. Traffic suddenly stopped and my dad had to slow down to a stop quickly. The Jeep drove straight into the canoe trailer. Now, the longest canoe was upside down on the trailer and had that metal bow. The Jeep was an SUV, and she drove into one lower canoe with her bumper and under the longer canoe with her hood. We felt the bump in the Canyonero. And then another bump. She backed up and out from under the canoes. Her bumper impaled on a lower canoe and her hood drove under the metal bow of the upper canoe. When she reversed, she effectively peeled her hood like a tin can opener. My dad and the female driver of the Jeep got out of their SUVs. She was a mid-50s woman from Jersey with the "let me see your manager" haircut, and she was in a rush to get home immediately. She commented on how she owned a vacation home in the area and how he damaged her brand new Jeep before citing local laws and said he needed a red flag which he didn't have. It had blown off on the many-hour highway trips. My father commented that he's carrying many big red canoes home, and she was such an impatient driver that she cut off my mum, who was following him before plowing into the big red canoes. The Jeep lady commented that it was probably a scheme for both my mum and dad to try and trick people into getting between them before stopping and forcing others to hit him for the insurance money. She threatened to sue him for damages to her SUV in addition to the distress and 1 or 2 other things I couldn't remember. She demanded the police come immediately to her aid to note the details for her up-and-coming lawsuit. I already called them, my dad confidently said as he'd immediately called them after being rear-ended before getting out of the car. "Good," she said smugly. Just then a police cruiser pulled up and had to block rush hour traffic. A mid-20s-something cop got out and Jeep lady immediately was all over him to harangue him about this alleged entrapment scheme, forcing her to drive into a trailer with giant red canoes. She quotes the local law and forces the officer to get out a tape measure to check for the 4-foot rule. The police officer, obviously annoyed at this woman who rears-ended a trailer and then is claiming to be the victim, says that my father is within the code. She says, "No, he's not, measure again." He does so. He calls her over to show that the canoe is indeed just within the 4-foot rule and does not require a red marker flag. She says, "Well, check his brake lights. I couldn't see any." The officer quotes a local law saying that the brake lights must be visible at the standing height at a certain distance. He then proceeds to use the measuring tape she forced him to bring out to measure that exact distance, stood there and told my father to go hit his brake pedal. My father does so and both trailer brake lights engage. The officer comments, "He's legal." And the woman berates him that he's wrong and says, "Well, I couldn't see those tail lights, I was much closer than that." Officer smirked and said, "Do you think that may have been the problem, ma'am?" Long story short, he wrote the police report to state how my father was within every inch of the local laws, and that not only did this woman rear-end him but that she must have been extraordinarily inept to rear-end a trailer full of giant 18-foot red canoes. My father ended up being awarded the cost of 2 new canoes and a new trailer from her insurance agency, who found her 100% at fault. Thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please consider subscribing to the channel for more content. Let me know what you think about the stories in the comment section below. Have a great day. Bye-bye.